Hey y'all, Sarazanmai Cameron, and today I am going to be reviewing the second episode of Sarazanmai. And I gotta say, this episode didn't bring it like episode 1 brought it, but it was still nice because, for one, we finally get context as to why Kazuki cross-dresses, because he wants to make his brother happy, so he pretty much pretends that he's Sarachan the idol so that he can make his little brother happier. But I like how it shows some of the downsides of that kind of thinking, because I like how near the end it kind of reveals a plot twist that he stole this cat from someone else's house in order to make his brother happy. And you know what? I like that because it shows off that Kazuki, he ain't squeaky clean. He has some quirks to him that are not of the positive variety, and I feel like it makes him a much more rounded, fully rounded character, personality-wise. So I gotta give it credit to that. That he's not a protagonist and just, squeaky clean and perfect. No. He's got his flaws and he's got his negative traits. And then aside from that, I also like how this episode finally gave us a grasp as to why Kuji is so rough and why he's got like that hard-nosed personality, because I like how this episode explained that his brother's pretty much, he works in a gang and all that. And Kuji's involved in doing some of the minor shit, like putting weed in packages, and he even has his own gun. And I like how that puts into context the events of episode 1, why he wanted to deal with things violently, because that's most likely the only type of life that he knows. He probably doesn't know how to settle things calmly, just going by the context given out by this specific episode. And that's why I thought this episode was successful. Like, you really got to know, and at least know to a large extent, Kazuki and Kuji. And a bit of Kazuki's brother too, which was nice, because if the anime didn't spend time dedicated towards showing off the brother of Kazuki, then it'd be hard to give a shit about his struggles. But since we get to see him early in episode 2, since I don't know how many episodes this is going to go, since it might go 11, 12, or 13, I have no idea, but it did a good job of showing his brother early, so that if later on you have Kazuki struggle for the sake of his brother, we will actually give a shit, because they give us a grasp of his personality. So that was pretty cool on the episode too, from a character standpoint. The only downside is, I wish they would have spent a bit more time fleshing him out into a bit. And there were a few sequences where they were kind of wasting time. Like, they did the whole water slide scene again this episode from episode 1, which, yes, it looks really pretty animated, but they could have really gotten rid of that shit. Gotten rid of the scene where Kappa transforms Kazuki also, because it's like we saw that stuff in episode 1. If they would have just done a quick montage, maybe given that minute, gave into some more character development or some characterization at the very least, then that would have made this episode better. So it felt like there was like around a bit more than a minute wasted in screen time. So that's a downside. And then there was like this battle sequence when they were taking on this cat zombie Kappa, where the fight revolved in the same thing again, with the 3 characters spinning and attacking towards the cat Kappa zombie thing, and then they defeat it, and it just feels too easy. In episode 1, the conflict felt like more weighty. It felt more intense. Here it just feels like, oh, here we go, quick, easy, boom, 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 done. It just doesn't feel like it has impact like episode 1 did. Don't get it wrong though. This episode was good, and at the very least, you have the Kappa doing favors for the cast, because he says if you get a certain amount of these dishes of hope, y'all can make witches, so at the very least, they are going to get rewarded for their efforts. So that's a positive about this episode from a story standpoint. And to get credit, the episode did have some nice comedic sequences that made the episode good too, so I gotta give it credit for that. And from the animation and art standpoint, they were actually pretty good, actually. Keeps the same quality from episode 1. Anything involving water is super fluid, stylistic from an art standpoint, and the voice performances are pretty good too. And I also like how they're introducing these 2 villains, like these 2 cops that take out the desires of people. So we finally have a semblance of antagonists too. So That was also another cool element about this episode. And I like from a narrative standpoint, it could set up the conflict between those two cops and the brother of Kuji later on, because since they extract desires, it's probably going to involve his brother eventually. So that was also some nice setup. At least I believe they're going to utilize that. For all we know, the anime can fucking just subvert my expectations. But overall, though, I'm hyped to see more. And that's why, taking all these factors into consideration, I'm going to rate this episode a 7 out of 10. I still think this anime is still pretty darn good, and I cannot wait to see more. So anyways, guys and gals, these are my thoughts on the second episode of this show. Comment down your thoughts in the comment section, rate the video, subscribe, and I'll see y'all later if you subscribe for more, alright? Thank y'all so much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.